Nikon Japan has just issued a recall of sorts for the Nikon Z8. Apparently some cameras have a problem where the lens doesn't properly lock to the mount. So could this affect your camera? Could you be out in a shoot and a lens come loose? Would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Well, stick around after this short break for all the details. But first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, but most importantly, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything and really does help this channel grow. And if you're already a subscriber, thanks so much for your support. Nikon announced the Z8 on May the 10th, and it started shipping just a few weeks later, becoming the best-selling camera in the second quarter. However, some customers are experiencing difficulty with the lens locking to the mount. Now, Nikon does say that this does happen with a select group of customers with the Nikon Z8, no other cameras, and that it does occur in rare occasions where the lens doesn't properly attach or can't be rotated or locked into position. So does this mean that the lens could come loose during a shoot after you've already locked it into position? Well, that's not what this is saying. What it's saying is that you would have problems actually getting it to lock into position. Either A, it's not going to rotate, or when you rotate it, it's just not going to click, it's not going to lock. And this is good news. That doesn't mean to say that there aren't other things here. This is relatively new that this has come out. We've just heard about this. Who knows if you've got a camera and it's working perfectly now, that in some months or years you don't have a problem. But I do have good news. You see, Nikon has gotten out in front of this. I'm not sure if it's called a recall or a special program at this point, because all I have is Nikon Japan. It's all in Japanese, so we're getting a Japanese translation, but it does read like a recall, it smells like a recall, and it functions like a recall, so I'm calling it a recall, at least at this point. And what Nikon's saying is that it's a free repair. You don't have to pay for the shipping to send it in if you don't have access to a local camera store, and that you're covered. And I know what you're thinking. Simon, this camera's under warranty. It was only made a couple of months ago. I only bought it last month, so obviously it's under warranty. And see, that's what's unique about recalls. A recall is out there for a given specific set of circumstances for specific hardware or software. And there's no, well, I wouldn't say there's no date limitations. There usually are date limitations, but they're pretty broad. And it says, based on this situation, this is what we provide for the customer. And so by saying it's free, obviously it's free today, but it's also going to be free into the future. So if you buy the Nikon Z8 and you don't have this problem, but this problem somehow rears its ugly head, 1 year after you purchase the camera, of course, if you're living in Australia, you have a 5-year warranty, but for the rest of us, you're still covered, and that's really good news. But I have other good news. This doesn't affect every Nikon Z8. Now, I don't know which ones it does affect, but you need to grab the serial number, which is off the back of the camera, and then what you do, using this link right here, I also have it in the description, you go to Nikon's website, you put in the code, and they'll let you know if, yes, you know, you should send this camera in for repair, we'll cover the shipping and all that wonderful stuff, and then you just follow all the steps, or it'll say, yeah, no, you're covered. You don't have to worry about this issue. So, yeah. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, great, the Nikon Z8 is a dud. We'll probably see some comments saying something to the effect of Nikon can't make a good camera. Look at this. It's falling apart after a month. This is pretty common to actually have issues, to have recalls. I mean, it doesn't happen with every product, but it does happen. Look at the Canon EOS R5, the direct competitor to the Nikon Z8. Do you recall all those problems at the beginning we had with overheating, and how this camera, you could put it in a freezer and it would still overheat? If you were shooting in photo mode and then you switched it over to video, you might have a minute or two, or in some cases, 0 minutes, and they solved that with firmware updates. This doesn't mean that the Nikon Z8 is a bad camera. Like with any new product, once you get past Service Pack 3, which is something we kind of coined back in the old days of the 90s with Microsoft softwares, whenever they released a new operating system, you never upgraded until they went to Service Pack 3. And whenever you got to that third service pack, generally things were pretty, well, stable. And it's almost the same with cameras or operating systems or other things where you get regular updates. It's usually best not to depend on something until you get it to that third firmware update, until you get it to that third service pack or operating system release. And that's kind of the same thing with the Nikon Z8 here. You can expect a few little awkward problems, maybe with how the camera operates, or in this case, we've got a recall. Again, I don't know if they're calling it a recall because I only have the Japanese. Now, maybe based on the time you're watching this, we'll have the English version on Nikon USA, and we'll be able to take a look and we'll see what they actually call it. But the good news is it's covered, it's free. They'll cover the shipping if you have to ship it in. But you know, when I was in Vancouver last week and I was shooting, I only had very limited gear. I actually had this laptop with me here. I basically brought enough gear to do run and gun, and I thought maybe I might do a few videos, so I brought the Tascam mic. I did forget to bring a micro SD to SD card adapter, and I did buy one the very next day, but I had a lot of problems with audio, and I thought it was me. I thought, you know, maybe I hadn't brought this laptop up to date. I checked it, I had. But then when I got back home and I started doing some editing, I was noticing some really strange problems, and apparently with an update to Final Cut 10.6.6 from 10.6.5, it had made some, well, had really screwed up some of the audio capabilities of the application. So if you're using Final Cut 10.6.6, you're having problems with some of your audio filters, specifically with the EQ or the limiter. Those are two that I definitely noticed a problem with. Apple's well aware of the problem. It's well documented on the internet, and they'll get a fix out soon. So it's quite common that we can have these issues. And you know, when I was on the phone with support yesterday, one of the things I said is, because my operating system was 1 year behind, it's the latest release. She says, why aren't you up to date? And I said, well, because of issues like this. If everything is working, the operating system is working, I'm not browsing a lot of websites, I don't really have to worry about security too much, I'm going to basically take a version of the operating system that seems to be stable and reliable, lock it down, not provide any updates, and the same with Final Cut Pro. But 10.6.6 provided some additional functionality that I allowed it to update, and now I've got all sorts of problems. So what we're seeing here with the Nikon Z8, it's not completely uncommon. Remember, this is a new camera, it's just being released, and ever since the 1990s, it's been pretty common for companies to release hardware, to release software that isn't fully baked, and then they fix it with firmware updates. Now in this case here, it looks like this issue happens to be a hardware issue, so the camera has to be sent in. So yeah, it's a bit of a Debbie Downer for a Friday, but again, Nikon's got you covered. I wouldn't worry about that. Some growing pains, just like I have to do with Final Cut right now. I've got a major project that I want to get out the door, not for YouTube. And basically, I just have to wait for them to provide an update, because if I go ahead and fix everything now, then once they provide that update, those fixes aren't going to work. And I'm just delaying, hoping, because this is a pretty big issue, that they'll have it fixed pretty soon. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, then go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you also choose all notifications. I really do want to try to get this channel to around 50,000 subscribers by Christmas time, and 60 would be nice, but I think that's a little bit too aggressive. And if you want to stay up to date on all the minor news and rumors, all those news stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, or if you're looking for pricing discounts, then go ahead and follow me on Twitter. There's a huge amount of deals at B&H and Adorama, as well as your local camera store. Here in Canada, we're seeing the Canon EOS R5, the R3, and the R6 Mark II. You get a free, Canon poster for the AE1. And if you get the R5, it's $500 off Canadian. And of course, in the United States, you get $500 off. You also get a free battery grip, all for $33.99. It was $32.99 last month, and also came with an EF to RF adapter. I don't think the sales are over for the Canon EOS R5. We also see $500 off the R3. The S1H Mark II, we saw a sale recently on the GH6. I don't know if that one's still on sale. Many other sales out there for Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic. Just use my links here. They're smart links. They're affiliate links. So if you do buy anything, I could get a small commission back. But there's a huge amount of deals. This is not like the first 3 years of this decade where you never saw anything on sale. And if anything, you saw things going above suggested retail price. Right now, if you don't want the latest and greatest, if you're not waiting for the newest S1H or the newest R5 refresher or the Z6 Mark II, Z7 Mark II, you're happy with those. You're not looking out for the Z3 Mark II, the Z3 Mark II, the Z7 and the Z6 Mark II. There's some really big deals out there, some incredible deals like I've never seen. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day and a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.